Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. And tonight we're talking about a film which I watched for the third time last Sunday. Today is another Sunday, and this is I Love You, Philip Morris. It is a movie that has kind of gone under the radar quite a bit. I don't really hear anybody else talking about this film. Uh, the only reason why I was possibly even aware of this movie is because it stars Jim Carrey and Ewan McGregor in it. Sorry, Ewan McGregor, and I actually think this is one of Jim Carrey's best acting performances. And although there's a lot of comedy in the movie, it's a very subdued kind of performance by him, and he does an amazing job. According to me, at least, I think this is one of his best roles, to be honest. And I think one of the reasons why this movie didn't really get the kind of acclaim that I think it should have gotten is possible because it came out in 2009, and it's about the relationship of a homosexual pair. So I'm guessing it wasn't really meant for something that should have been a blockbuster comedy hit or something like that. Anyway, it's set during the 80s and the 90s, based on the real life experiences of con artist, imposter, and multiple prison escapee Stephen J. Russell, played by Jim Carrey. His boyfriend, lover is Philip Morris, played by Ewan McGregor. You've also got Leslie Mann, who plays Jim Carrey's ex-wife, who he's still very in touch with, and are still very good friends with. And I don't think I know anybody else in this film. So Stephen. I think his name, Stephen J. Russell, also goes by the name Stephen McVicker because he was adopted as a child. So that you see in the movie, Stephen is just kind of like going through his motions in his early adult life in Virginia Beach. He's a police officer. I think he's a deputy basically at the sheriff's office. Sundays he plays the organ at church, so you actually see him playing it, and he's got his wife Debbie, played by Leslie Mann, and he's just going through the motions. Like they've got a child, but he, it's like there's something missing from his life. And one of the things that he's trying to do is during his off hours, he's trying to search for his biological mother, who gave him up for adoption. He finally does find her, and he's urged by his wife Debbie to go and speak to her, but then she rejects him, and I think this triggers something in him. He quits the police force and then moves to Texas and works for his family business. He quickly becomes a very, very, friendly with a lot of the neighbors and stuff. But after a car crash, he realizes that he's actually gay, and he starts having, relationships with men. He informs this to Debbie. They have a divorce, but they're still friends, like I mentioned earlier, and they're taking care of their daughter together. He gets a boyfriend called Jimmy, I think, who's Hispanic, and they move to Miami. They got a luxurious lifestyle. He gives a lot of expensive gifts to him and all that stuff, but he basically becomes a con man just to keep that lifestyle grow. So he's finally caught. He's gone to prison, and initially we don't see what happens to Jimmy, but apparently Jimmy dies later off because of AIDS. And while in prison, he becomes this person who can get a lot of things done with his contacts in the prison, and he meets the introverted Philip Morris, played by Ewan McGregor. They basically become an item, and they are completely inseparable. However, he is released first. They're initially separated because he's going to be released, and Philip is still in prison. He pretends to be a lawyer, and then through fraudulent means he gets him an early release, and they start off. He to give Philip the kind of lifestyle that he wants him to get. He does a lot of embezzlement. He gets a job as a chief finance officer in one of the companies, and he is basically getting a lot of money out of them. Then he gets arrested again. So those are basically the funny stuff when he gets arrested and all that. him apologizing to the cops after he uses bad words. Philip is upset because of he didn't want any of this stuff. He really wants more of a nice lifestyle without too much hassle, and he doesn't want him to do all these things. Unfortunately, he gets arrested as well, and then Stephen they get really up. Philip gets really upset with Stephen, and he burst out. He slaps him and all that, and they're both in prison. And then, in order to see him while he's outside, he fakes his death by pretending to die of AIDS. And man, that's those scenes. The way that Jim Carrey looks in that scene where he basically starves himself, makes him vomit out food, takes a lot of medicine, and makes himself sick. He forges the documents, and nobody actually checked to see once he's moved to a private facility to do an AIDS test on him. They just go by the fact that it's written on the paper. He fakes it. Superb stuff. The way he does a lot of things to get out of prison is really funny. And he comes out of prison and meets Philip, but then he gets caught. He runs into an old co-worker, from the company that he was embezzling from. At the end of the movie, we get to learn that Philip has been released out of prison in 2006. And then, because he's still upset at him, Stephen comes out, he gives one more, try to escape from prison just to see, just to retain and try to get him out and all that stuff. And then he is put back and given a life sentence for 144 years or something like that, because of the number of times he's done forgery as well as his multiple escaping. So he's still in prison. The real Stephen is still in prison. Philip is, however, outside, and so he is, he wrote this novel. He wrote his biography kind of stuff, and this movie is based on him. And the last scene is more typical Jim Carrey, because you see the alarm going off and the sirens going off, and Stephen running maniacally laughing while the prison guards try to chase him down. So I think that's the perfect end to the movie. He keeps trying to get out, but yeah, he's still in prison. So he wrote this book called I think I already read it, but I Love You, Philip Morris: A True Story of Life, Love, and Prison Breaks by Stephen McVicker. That's the other name that he goes by. And at this moment, Stephen is still in prison. So yeah. The movie made just a little over little less than 21 million at the box office. It was made on a budget of, how much is that? 13 million. And I actually wish this movie had made a lot more, because it really is a fun movie to watch. And it is controversial in certain cases, mainly because of the homosexual activity. But it's a movie that I really like. Of course, Jim Carrey is somebody who I absolutely love, and I wish this movie had, really gotten the heights of some of the other films and some of Ewan McGregor's other films as well, because they both did a bang-up job, but I think particularly Jim Carrey is one of his best movies. I'll give the movie an 8 out of 10. Thank you.